Tonight, we will tell you a story that spans thousands of years. A story not of pharaohs or great battles, but of the quiet, enduring rhythm of daily life in ancient Egypt. You will learn about a woman whose name history does not record, yet whose work was as vital as the Nile's flow itself. A washerwoman. Discover how her day began before the sun touched the desert, how she wrestled with the river's current, how her hands transformed soiled linen into clean fabric, and how her silent, repetitive labor maintained the health and order of an entire civilization. It is a tale of routine, of simple tools, and of the profound significance found in indispensable work. Oh, and if you enjoy these stories that help you drift into restful sleep, please consider liking this video, leaving a comment, and subscribing to the channel. New stories for sleep are shared here every day. All right, find a comfortable spot, let your body sink into whatever supports you, and take a deep, calming breath. Let your muscles relax, your mind quiet, as we journey back in time. Our story begins not in the bustling markets or the grand temples, but in the quiet stillness before dawn, in a small mud brick home on the edge of a village nestled beside the vast ancient Nile. The first hint of light, a pale gray, had not yet touched the eastern horizon. But in the small, sun-baked, mud-brick dwelling of a washerwoman in ancient Egypt, the rhythm of a new day was already stirring. Her name, if history remembered it, is lost to us, as are the names of countless others whose diligent labor formed the very foundation of this great civilization. Yet her story, a silent testament to endurance and purpose, can still be told. You can imagine her now stirring from a deep, dreamless sleep on a simple mat laid upon the cool, packed earth floor. The air inside the dwelling was still heavy with the night's coolness, a brief reprieve from the relentless heat that would soon descend with the sun. No alarm clock marked the passage of time, only an internal clock tuned to the needs of her demanding profession and the slow, inevitable creep of dawn. The silence of the pre-dawn hours was profound, broken only by the distant hoot of an owl or the rustle of a palm frond in the slightest breeze, a stark contrast to the bustling activity that would soon fill the village streets. She rose quietly, her movements practiced and economical. Her body, accustomed to the strenuous work awaiting her, moved with a quiet efficiency born of years of repetitive motion. You would notice the calluses on her hands, the strength in her shoulders, the subtle stiffness in her joints that spoke of long hours spent bending and lifting. Her attire was simple, a practical, loose-fitting linen tunic, perhaps cinched at the waist with a cord. This was not clothing for display, but for utility, designed to withstand the rigors of water, sun, and dirt, and to dry quickly. Its natural color, undyed, blended with the earth, a humble uniform for a vital role. She moved with a purpose that transcended mere habit. It was the purpose of sustenance, of providing for herself and perhaps her family, a silent commitment to the daily grind. Before she left her home, she performed a brief, personal ritual of preparation. A small basin of water, drawn from a nearby well the evening before, awaited her. With it, she splashed her face, washing away the remnants of sleep and the dust that settled even indoors. Her hair, long and dark, would be drawn back tightly, perhaps braided or secured with a simple strip of cloth, keeping it out of her way during her arduous tasks. This small act of personal grooming was not for vanity, but for practicality, ensuring nothing would impede her work or become entangled in the laundry. Every detail of her preparation was geared towards efficiency, minimizing any hindrance to the physically demanding labor ahead. Next came the preparation of her tools, essential extensions of her labor. Her primary implements were wooden beating clubs, stout and smooth from countless hours of use. These were not mere sticks. They were carefully shaped implements designed to effectively loosen grime from fabric without tearing it. You might observe a slight sheen on their surfaces, polished by the friction of cloth and water, a testament to their constant employment. She would check their integrity, ensuring there were no splinters or cracks that might damage the precious linens entrusted to her care. Sometimes she would carry a small, tightly woven basket or a net, crafted from reeds, which would serve to transport smaller, more delicate items, or simply to keep her hands free during the walk. These tools, simple as they were, represented centuries of accumulated wisdom in the art of cleaning. Her most crucial companion, though, was not a tool, but a substance, natron, a naturally occurring salt mixture found abundantly in Egypt. This was ancient Egypt's equivalent of soap, a powerful, effective cleansing agent. She might carry a small pouch or jar filled with this granular substance, along with perhaps some ash from burned plants, which also possessed cleansing properties due to its alkalinity. These were her secret weapons against dirt, the very agents that would transform soiled fabrics into pristine linens, from the coarse weaves of a farmer's tunic to the fine, almost translucent cloth worn by a scribe or noble. She would carefully secure these provisions, ensuring they would not spill or be lost on her journey to the river, where her day's work truly began. The air outside was still cool and held the faint, earthy scent of damp soil and the distant murmur of the awakening village. The stars, though beginning to fade, still shone with a clarity that only a pre-dawn sky can offer, casting long, soft shadows. She took a deep breath, the air filling her lungs with the promise of another day. There was no joy or despair in her movements, only the quiet acceptance of her duty, a deep-seated understanding of her place in the intricate tapestry of Egyptian life. Her work was not a choice, but a necessity, a fundamental contribution to the well-being of her community. Every household, from the humblest peasant's hut to the grandest pharaoh's palace, relied on the cleanliness she provided. She was a guardian of hygiene, a silent force against disease, her labor ensuring comfort and health in a world that lacked modern sanitation. With her tools gathered, her provisions secured, and her mind focused on the day's demands, she was ready. She would step out of her small home, leaving the quiet darkness behind, and begin her journey towards the life-giving waters of the Nile. The path would be familiar, worn smooth by generations of feet, her own among them, tracing the same route day after day, year after year. Her silhouette, small against the encroaching dawn, would be a fleeting shadow, moving with quiet determination towards the river where the true work of her day would begin. This solitary figure, on the cusp of another demanding day, embodied the quiet strength that sustained a civilization, a silent, essential pillar of a society built on order and its meticulous daily routine. As the first faint blush of dawn began to paint the eastern sky, A delicate palette of soft rose, muted violet, and pale gold, she stepped out from the cool confines of her dwelling. The air, crisp and fresh with the lingering coolness of night, carried the subtle scent of damp earth, the faint, comforting aroma of distant cooking fires just beginning to stir, and the unique, dry fragrance of the desert itself. Her basket, now heavy with the soiled linens entrusted to her care, tunics worn by scribes, children's wraps, the daily wear of families, and her carefully prepared tools rested comfortably on her shoulder. Its familiar weight, a constant companion, was a testament to the day's impending labors, a quiet promise of diligence and physical exertion. The village, still largely asleep, stirred with a quiet, awakening breath, a slow, organic rhythm of life reasserting itself. A rooster's distant, clear crow pierced the profound stillness, echoing across the rooftops, followed by the soft, almost conversational bray of a donkey from a nearby enclosure, impatient for its morning feed. Faint murmurs of early risers could be heard from behind closed doors, perhaps a mother stirring the embers of her hearth for breakfast, the gentle scrape of a grinding stone preparing grain, or a farmer gathering his wooden implements before heading to the fertile fields, his steps muffled by the soft dust. The narrow paths, deeply worn by countless footsteps over generations, were still cloaked in a soft, ethereal twilight, but she knew every turn, every uneven stone, every familiar scent that guided her way with an instinct born of daily repetition. She passed by the silent granaries, their rounded, sturdy forms dark and imposing against the brightening sky, silent guardians of the village's sustenance. She skirted the small enclosed courtyards where families still slumbered, their dreams undisturbed by the gentle stirrings of the world outside. Occasionally, a lean, watchful dog curled in a patch. The path she followed, worn smooth by countless bare feet over generations, led her steadily towards the lifeblood of Egypt, the great Nile River itself. The air, still cool from the receding night, held the faint scent of damp earth, the rich aroma of river mud, and the distant, constant murmur of the flowing water, a sound both soothing and powerful. As she drew closer, the sky above the eastern bank began to blush with the first delicate hues of dawn, painting the horizon in soft oranges and purples, then deepening into a vibrant rose, a daily masterpiece unfolding before her eyes, signaling the start of another day's arduous work. This was her workplace, her temple of daily labor, a place she knew intimately, where the rhythm of the river dictated the rhythm of her tasks, a cycle as ancient and enduring as the Nile itself, a constant in her demanding life. She arrived at a familiar spot, a gently sloping bank that offered safe access to the water, not too deep, not too swift, a place where the current was manageable and the riverbed firm and predictable beneath her feet. Other washerwomen, perhaps a few men involved in similar tasks, were already there or arriving, their forms silhouetted against the growing light, their quiet movements reflecting a shared unspoken dedication. Each found their own space along the wide expanse of the river, a tacit division of labor observed without need for words. There was a quiet understanding among them, a shared purpose that transcended spoken words, a silent acknowledgement of the demanding yet essential work they all undertook, a camaraderie forged in shared toil. She carefully set down her heavy basket, the woven reeds groaning faintly under the weight of the soiled linens, a sound that spoke of the day's coming toil and the accumulated burdens she carried. Beside it, she placed her simple wooden beating club, its surface smooth and worn from years of dedicated use, a tool as vital as her own hands, and a small pouch containing her cleaning agents, substances like natron, a natural salt, and plant ash that would aid her in the arduous process of purification. With a practiced movement, born of countless mornings spent by these banks, a ritual almost, she tucked her practical linen dress up, securing it tightly around her waist to keep it from getting soaked unnecessarily, though she knew the lower part would inevitably become wet, an inevitable sacrifice to the demands of her profession. Then, with a sigh that was more of anticipation for the task ahead than weariness from the journey, she stepped into the cool, clear water of the Nile. The river embraced her legs, a familiar chill that quickly gave way to a comforting coolness as her body adjusted, an almost ritualistic immersion into the element that sustained her world, a refreshing jolt to begin the day. The current, gentle yet persistent, flowed around her, a constant, soothing presence, carrying with it the whispers of distant lands, the stories of upstream villages, and the echoes of ancient times, a constant reminder of the river's immense power and timeless journey. She waded deeper, just enough so that the water reached her knees, providing the perfect depth for her work, allowing her to lean into the flow without being swept away, maintaining her balance and leverage. The riverbed beneath her feet was a mix of fine sand and smooth, rounded stones, each worn smooth by the relentless passage of the water, a natural, stable foundation for her laborious efforts. One by one, with deliberate, unhurried movements, she began to take the soiled garments from her basket. There were tunics of fine linen worn by scribes and officials, some stained with the reddish dust of the fields from agricultural workers, others with the dark, greasy residue of cooking fires, and many bearing the subtle, intimate marks of daily life, the salt of sweat, the oils from human skin, and the accumulated grime of human activity. There were wraps and cloaks, simple loincloths worn by laborers, and sometimes, if she was fortunate enough to serve a wealthier household, more elaborately woven fabrics, perhaps even some with delicate embroidery or intricate patterns demanding an even greater degree of careful handling and specialized attention. Each piece held its own story, its own particular challenge of cleanliness, a silent testament to the lives lived within their folds, a glimpse into the routines of others. She submerged them fully into the river's embrace, allowing the cool water to penetrate every fiber, watching as the dry, stiff fabric softened and began to absorb the life-giving liquid, transforming from rigid to pliant. This initial soaking was a crucial first step, a patient, unhurried process designed to loosen the stubborn dirt and grime that had accumulated over days of wear, softening the bonds between the impurities and the threads, making them easier to dislodge later. The water, with its natural cleansing properties and gentle current, began its work immediately, softening the dried mud, dissolving the grease, and preparing the fabrics for the more strenuous work to come, a silent, unseen process of liberation, a foundational stage of purification. She moved her hands through the submerged cloth, gently agitating it, feeling the fibers begin to relax and release their hold on the impurities. a subtle transformation taking place beneath the surface of the water. This was not yet the intense labor of beating, the physical exertion that would truly cleanse, but a quiet, preparatory dance with the water, a time for the river to begin its preliminary cleansing, drawing out the superficial layers of defilement and setting the stage for deeper cleaning. The sun was now climbing higher, casting a golden glow across the water, illuminating the ripples and eddies, turning the river into a shimmering expanse. And the sounds of the waking village began to reach her. The bleating of a goat, the distant call of a vendor announcing his wares, the murmur of voices rising with the sun, mixing with the gentle lapping of the Nile against the banks, creating a symphony of morning life. She knew that this was just the beginning of her long day, a demanding cycle that would repeat with the rising sun, day after day, year after year. But with each piece of linen she placed into the water, she felt a quiet satisfaction in the methodical progression of her labor, a fundamental contribution to the order and cleanliness of her world, ensuring comfort and hygiene for those she served. Her hands, strong and calloused from years of dedication, moved with an intuitive grace, a testament to her mastery of this ancient and indispensable craft. Once the linens had sufficiently soaked in the cool embrace of the Nile, their fibers softened, and the initial grime loosened by the gentle current, her true and most arduous work began. You would observe her then, reaching for a small, meticulously woven basket, containing a precious granular substance known throughout the land as natron. This was no ordinary sand. Natron, a naturally occurring mineral salt, was absolutely vital to ancient Egyptian cleansing practices, a cornerstone of hygiene in a world without modern soap. It was a unique blend of sodium carbonate and sodium bicarbonate, often found deposited in the dry lake beds of specific regions, most notably the famed Wadi el Natrun, a valley situated strategically west of the fertile Nile Delta. The Egyptians, resourceful and pragmatic, understood its multifaceted power, utilizing it not only for the sacred rites of mummification, preserving the deceased for eternity, but also for its powerful everyday cleansing properties, acting simultaneously as a degreaser, a potent whitener for the often off-white linen, and a mild yet effective disinfectant. Crucial in preventing the spread of ailments in a dense community. Alongside the natron, depending on the availability and the specific needs of the fabric, she might also possess a small, carefully tied pouch of plant ash. This ash, meticulously derived from the burning of specific slow-burning plants, contained a high concentration of alkaline compounds. When these compounds interacted with the water, they created a rudimentary yet remarkably effective soap-like solution, capable of breaking down stubborn oils and ingrained dirt. With movements that spoke of countless hours spent in this very posture, movements that were both economical and precise, she would sprinkle a measured amount of the granular natron over the damp fabric. Her fingers, calloused yet sensitive, would then rub the substance gently but firmly into the more soiled areas, ensuring every fiber received its share of the powerful cleanser. For particularly stubborn stains, perhaps from mud or cooking spills, a small pinch of the alkaline plant ash might be mixed with a few drops of river water to form a thick, abrasive paste, which she then diligently worked into the offending fibers, coaxing the deep-seated grime to release its hold. The air around her would carry a faint, earthy scent, a blend of the damp river's freshness and the sharp mineral tang of the natron, a scent that spoke of deep cleaning and efficacy. Then, with the initial application of cleansers complete, came the most physically demanding, indeed, the most brutal part of her entire day, the beating. From the edge of the riverbank, where her tools lay neatly arranged, she retrieved a sturdy wooden club. This implement, often fashioned from a dense, resilient wood, was simple in its design, yet profoundly effective. Its surface was smoothed not by careful carving, but by years of relentless use, by the friction of countless blows against fabric and stone, until it felt like an extension of her own arm. This club was her primary tool for achieving the deep, uncompromising cleanliness demanded by her clients. Holding the wet, heavy linen firmly with one hand, its weight pulling against her grip, she would raise the club high with the other. The movement was a practiced arc, a powerful swing that drew on the strength of her shoulders, back, and arms. She would bring the club down with a powerful rhythmic thud against the fabric, which she had carefully spread over a flat, smooth stone or a specially prepared worn section of the riverbank. The dull slapping sound of wood against wet cloth, followed by the splash of displaced water, echoed across the placid surface of the Nile. It was a familiar symphony of labor, a constant percussive rhythm that punctuated the morning air, joining the distant cries of birds and the faint murmur of human activity along the river. Her muscles, already warmed by the early morning walk and the initial soaking, strained with each forceful swing. This was a testament to the sheer physical effort required for this arduous, repetitive task. Water, now a cloudy, churning mixture of dissolved dirt and the applied cleansing agents, splattered outwards with each forceful impact, forming murky rivulets that flowed relentlessly back into the vast, indifferent current of the Nile, carrying away the impurities, the tangible, visible evidence of the day's relentless toil. Each blow, though seemingly brutal, was carefully aimed, a deliberate action designed to force the dirt and the applied cleansing agents deeply into the very core of the fibers, then, with the subsequent impacts, to release them and push them out into the water. It was a relentless, almost meditative, yet undeniably exhausting, repetitive motion, a precise dance of brute force and subtle control, ensuring that every single inch of fabric, from the smallest hem to the broadest expanse, was thoroughly worked and purged of its grime. She possessed an innate understanding of her materials, knowing precisely how much force to apply for different types of soiling, how to fold and reposition the cloth to target particularly stubborn stains without, crucially, damaging the delicate weave of the linen. Linen, derived from the flax plant, was the most common fabric of the time, revered for its breathability and strength, yet also susceptible to tearing if mishandled. While most items were indeed linen, varying significantly from the fine, almost translucent weaves worn by the wealthy elite to the coarser, heavier cloths used for the everyday garments of the common people, her technique adapted to each. There was a subtle, almost imperceptible shift in her rhythm and the pressure of her blows for different textures, a nuanced skill honed over years of tireless practice. Hours could pass in this manner, the sun climbing higher and higher in the sky, its heat beginning to intensify, beating down on her exposed shoulders. Her back, perpetually bent, ached from the constant bending, lifting, and swinging, a persistent dull throb that she had long since learned to ignore. Sweat, a mixture of effort and the rising temperature, trickled down her brow and temples, mingling with the spray from the river. Yet, despite the undeniable physical toll, there was a quiet, almost serene strength in her movements, a deep resilience born not just of necessity, but also of the ancient tradition she upheld. It was a testament to the enduring nature of her craft, a foundational element of daily life in this timeless land. Only when she was utterly satisfied that the beating had loosened every particle of grime, and the water running from the cloth was now noticeably clearer, no longer clouded with impurities, would she finally pause, allowing herself a brief moment of respite before preparing for the next crucial stage of the cleansing process. After the vigorous beating, the linen, now much cleaner, but still heavy with the milky gray water mixed with natron and loosened dirt, required a thorough rinsing. You would then guide each piece back into the cool, flowing current of the Nile, moving from the shallower washing pools to the deeper, clearer flow. This was not a quick dip, nor a casual swirl. It was a deliberate, patient process, essential for removing every last trace of the cleansers and the dislodged impurities. You held the fabric firmly, feeling the soft, wet weight in your hands, allowing the river's steady, unseen pull to carry away the remnants of daily life. You watched intently as the cloudy water, laden with the residue of grime and the natural soaps, slowly dispersed into the vast brown expanse of the river, leaving the fabric gradually clearer, its original pale hue beginning to re-emerge. The rinsing was a rhythmic dance with the water, a continuous ebb and flow of effort. You plunged the linen deep, lifted it high, turned it over and over, and plunged it again, feeling the resistance of the water against the woven fibers. Each immersion was designed to flush out every last particle of dirt and every trace of the plant ash or natron that had worked so diligently to clean the cloth. The cool, quite bracing embrace of the water against your hands and forearms, often sore and calloused from the strenuous beating, would have been a welcome sensation, a momentary, soothing reprieve from the physical exertions. You would repeat this precise action for each garment, large or small, ensuring that the water running off it was finally clear and clean, no longer murky, a silent testament to the thoroughness and dedication embedded in your work. This careful attention meant that the linen would return to its owners truly purified, free from any lingering residue that might irritate the skin or diminish its pristine appearance. Once thoroughly rinsed, the linen was still saturated, heavy with the river's weight, its fibers dense with absorbed moisture. The next crucial step was wringing, an act that demanded not just considerable physical strength, but also a practiced, almost intuitive precision. You would take a piece of linen, gather it tightly, and then, with a powerful twisting motion, wring it out. Your hands would grip the fabric, twisting in opposite directions, squeezing the very life out of the waterlogged cloth. Water would stream out in gushes, then cascades, then a continuous flow, returning to the river with a soft, splashing sound, like countless tiny sighs of release. This wringing was absolutely vital, The more water you could remove now, the faster the drying process would be under the intense, unforgiving Egyptian sun. It also meant a significantly lighter load to carry on your weary shoulders later in the day. A small but important relief after hours of labor. You would twist and squeeze, repeating the motion several times for each garment until only a gentle drip remained, or perhaps just a faint sheen of moisture on the fibers. The fabric, once limp and utterly waterlogged, would now hold a slight stiffness, a firmer texture, a clear sign that much of its moisture had been expelled. This entire painstaking cycle, the beating with the club, the deep rinsing in the current, the powerful wringing by hand, was repeated for every single item in your large bundle, from the smallest, most delicate piece of cloth to the largest, heaviest tunic or ceremonial wrap. Each stage flowed seamlessly into the next, a continuous loop of labor that transformed soiled fabric into pristine linen. The steady rhythm of your movements, the constant splash of the water, the dull, resonant thud of the beating club from the earlier stage, these were the pervasive sounds that marked your long day, a quiet, almost meditative symphony of unending, essential work. You knew that every drop of sweat, every ache in your muscles, every repetitive motion contributed directly to the cleanliness that was so highly valued in your society, a fundamental mark of purity, order, and social standing. This meticulous, physically demanding process was not just about removing visible dirt. It was about preparing the linen for its next life, ready to adorn the living, to be worn during daily activities, or to serve in sacred rituals, or even to shroud the deceased. The powerful, eternal river, your constant companion and tireless assistant, bore silent witness to your tireless efforts, absorbing the remnants of the day's grime and carrying them away downstream, leaving you with the pristine, almost sparkling results of your dedication. The sun would begin to climb higher, reflecting off the shimmering surface of the water, and you would feel the warmth on your back, a reminder of the next stage of your day's work. The river current, cool and swift, would continuously refresh the water around you, ensuring that the rinsing was always effective, always thorough. You might occasionally feel a small. Once the vigorous rinsing and powerful wringing had coaxed every possible drop of water from the fabric, leaving it not entirely dry but utterly purified, the next vital stage of the washerwoman's day began. The linen, though no longer heavy with river water, still clung to a deep, pervasive dampness. Its fibers dense and cool to the touch. This moisture, while a testament to the thoroughness of the wash, needed to be removed completely, not only to make the fabric ready for use, but also to prevent any lingering mustiness or the growth of undesirable elements. Her destination was not a heated room or an indoor rack, but the vast, open expanse of the river bank itself, where the most powerful and reliable drying agent in ancient Egypt awaited, the relentless, life-giving sun. You would observe her movements, precise and unhurried, as she gathered the large, heavy bundles of clean, damp linen. The bundles, now gleaming white, contrasted sharply with the darker, moist earth near the water's edge. She carried them, one by one, to a carefully chosen area slightly set back from the immediate bank. This spot was often a wide, flat stretch of golden sand, bleached by countless years of sunlight, or perhaps a collection of large, smooth, sun-baked rocks. These surfaces, having absorbed the morning's heat, would radiate a gentle warmth upwards, creating an ideal environment for drying. Each piece of fabric, from the smallest, finely woven headcloth to the largest, most intricately draped tunic, was treated with an almost reverent attention. She would unfold each item with practiced grace, her hands moving deftly to smooth out every crease and wrinkle. The goal was to ensure that the maximum surface area of the cloth was exposed directly to the sun and the dry, circulating air. Long strips of linen, some several cubits in length, were stretched out end to end, creating shimmering white pathways across the sandy ground. They lay like narrow, pale rivers, reflecting the brilliant light back into the sky. Heavier garments, such as thick wraps or more substantial tunics, might be draped carefully over low-lying bushes that dotted the bank or meticulously arranged over the warm, flat surfaces of the rocks, allowing air to circulate freely around them from all sides. The visual effect, as more and more linen was spread out, was striking. The riverbank transformed into a vast undulating tapestry of brilliant white, a testament to hours of strenuous labor and the promise of renewed cleanliness. The sun, an ever-present and dominant force in the Egyptian sky, was not just a passive observer in this process. It was an active, indispensable collaborator. Its rays, intense and unwavering, began their work almost immediately upon contact with the damp fibers. As the hours of the morning progressed into the full heat of the afternoon, the moisture trapped within the linen would begin its slow, steady ascent, evaporating silently into the dry air. You could almost perceive the invisible warmth radiating from the ground and the rocks, gently coaxing the dampness from the cloth. The air itself, naturally arid and clean, acted as a silent, continuous sponge, wicking away the rising vapor and carrying it effortlessly into the immense, clear blue sky above. This process extended beyond mere drying. It was a crucial form of natural sterilization and purification. The sun's potent ultraviolet light, combined with the sustained dry heat, served to eliminate any lingering bacteria, microbes, or microscopic impurities that might have survived the physical washing process. It was a final, natural purification, ensuring that the linen was not only visually clean, but also hygienically pure. This sunbaking process also imparted a distinct, fresh scent to the fabric, a clean, subtle aroma, quite different from the smell of river water or the natural cleansing agents. It was the unique scent of sun-baked linen, a delicate blend of earthy freshness mixed with the sharp, clean essence of the desert air, a smell that spoke of purity and renewal. As the day gradually matured, transitioning from the briskness of morning to the full, languid warmth of the afternoon, the landscape along the riverbank continued its transformation. Hundreds, perhaps thousands of individual pieces of linen, varying in size, weave, and texture, would lie spread out in neat, orderly rows. They would shimmer under the intense light, reflecting the sun's brilliance back like a myriad of tiny individual mirrors, creating a dazzling display of white against the gold of the sand and the muted greens of the sparse vegetation. The washerwoman, despite having completed the most physically demanding phases of her work, remained vigilant and attentive. She would periodically walk among the sprawling expanse of drying clothes, her gaze sweeping over the scene, Her hands would gently turn pieces to ensure that all sides received even exposure to the sun, or she might carefully adjust an edge to prevent it from being shadowed. She was also watchful for any stray dust carried by a sudden breeze, or for the occasional curious insect that might land on the pristine fabric. This phase of her day was often quiet, almost contemplative, a period of patient waiting as nature, guided by her careful arrangement, completed the task that human hands had so diligently begun. The gentle, rhythmic lapping of the river against the bank, the distant calls of various river birds, and the soft, almost imperceptible whisper of the wind as it moved over the drying cloth, formed a serene and unchanging backdrop to her silent watch. The transformation of the linen was slow, but it was utterly certain and visible. The limp, heavy, and damp cloth gradually lost its moisture, becoming lighter, stiffer, and eventually crisp and almost audibly crackling to the touch. The colors, particularly the undyed whites, seemed to brighten and intensify, restored to their original pristine purity. By the late afternoon, as the sun began its gentle descent towards the western horizon, the linen would be completely, thoroughly dry, perfectly prepared for the next stage of its journey back to the homes of its owners, ready to serve its purpose once more, a testament to the combined power of human labor and natural forces. The sun, a tireless ally in her daily toil, had now completed its silent work. The damp linen, which only hours before had been heavy with water, now lay crisp and light upon the warm, sun-baked earth of the riverbank, each piece, from the simplest loincloth worn by a field laborer to the most intricately woven tunic of a high-ranking noble, had been utterly transformed by the combined forces of the Nile's cleansing waters and the desert sun's relentless heat. This dual power, ancient and ever-present, had not only evaporated the last vestiges of moisture, but had also, she profoundly believed, chased away any lingering impurities and bacteria, leaving the fabric feeling resilient, almost stiff with its newly renewed structure and smelling of the clean, dry air and the faint, earthy scent of the river itself. It was a smell unique to garments dried under the vast, unblinking Egyptian sky, distinct from any indoor drying, imbuing them with a freshness that was both palpable and deeply reassuring, a testament to nature's purifying touch. Now came the delicate and systematic task of folding, a precise art born of long practice and an intimate understanding of the various fabrics she handled day after day. She would always begin with the largest pieces, perhaps the long flowing robes, often known as calasiras for women or shanty for men, though the specific styles varied over the millennia, of a wealthy household, or the wide rectangular wraps that might serve as bed linens, temple offerings, or even part of a funerary shroud. Spreading them smoothly on a specially cleared, clean, flat patch of sand, or on the tightly woven rush mat she brought for this purpose, she would meticulously align the edges, her hands moving with an almost unconscious rhythm, a dance honed by countless years of repetition. Each crease was deliberate, each fold an act of profound care, reflecting the exceptionally high value placed on appearance, purity, and hygiene in ancient Egyptian society. For the Egyptians, linen was far more than just clothing. It was a potent symbol of purity and order, ma'at, a reflection of social status, and an absolute practical necessity in the warm, often dusty climate. The way it was presented mattered immensely, and her unwavering skill ensured that each garment was returned not only thoroughly clean, but also impeccably arranged, pressed by her practiced hands, ready for immediate donning or respectful storage. She handled the various types of linen with subtly different approaches, each dictated by its weave, its specific purpose, and the social standing of its intended owner. The exceptionally finely woven, almost translucent fabrics, often belonging to the highest elite. The temple priests, or high-ranking government officials, required an especially gentle and reverent touch. These precious textiles were folded with an extra layer of precision, smoothed repeatedly with the flat of her palm to prevent any accidental creasing or damage that might mar their delicate appearance or signify disrespect. The coarser, more utilitarian cloths, perhaps from a craftsman's busy workshop, a soldier's bustling barracks, or a farmer's modest, sun-baked home, were handled with efficiency, yet still with the same underlying respect for the material and its essential, humble purpose. As she worked, her eyes, accustomed to spotting the slightest imperfection, even in the fading afternoon light, would meticulously scan each and every piece. A small tear, a stubborn stain that had somehow resisted even the most vigorous beating and the sun's powerful bleaching capabilities. A frayed edge that hinted at wear. Nothing escaped her experienced, discerning notice. If a persistent mark remained, she might decide it needed another, more targeted treatment tomorrow. Perhaps with a stronger abrasive paste or a longer, more intense soak. Or she might simply make a mental note to politely inform the owner, signaling her diligence, her honesty, and her commitment to perfection. The air around her was still warm, carrying the lingering heat of the day, but the intense, glaring heat of midday had noticeably begun to wane, softened by the gentle breeze that often stirred the tall reeds along the river's edge. The rhythmic sounds of her work, the soft rustle of fabric as it was smoothed and folded, the occasional whisper of sand beneath a moving hand, the distant soothing lapping of the Nile against the bank, blended seamlessly with the calls of birds returning to their nests, and the low murmur of life from the distant village as evening approached. It was a deeply meditative process, allowing her mind to drift from the physical exertion of the washing, yet keeping her hands engaged in their learned, precise motions, almost as if they possessed an independent intelligence. Once meticulously folded, the garments were sorted with an innate sense of order that was a hallmark of her professional routine. She knew by heart which pile belonged to which family, which bundle was destined for the artisans living near the bustling market, and which for the scribes residing in their quieter, more scholarly quarters. Some items, like the pristine white temple linens used in sacred rituals, or the specialized cloths for embalming the deceased, might be kept entirely separate, bundled with even greater care and reverence, perhaps destined for the temple or the mortuary workshop. She would then stack them into manageable piles, each group tied securely with a piece of rough linen cord or a strip of leftover fabric to keep them contained, protected, and easily transportable for the journey back to the village. The bundles grew steadily, becoming heavier with each addition, a tangible representation of her day's tireless effort and the collective cleanliness of her community. The familiar weight was not a burden, but a comfortable affirmation that spoke of work completed and duties fulfilled. This methodical organization was not merely for convenience. It was absolutely essential for maintaining her impeccable reputation and, by extension, her livelihood. In a society where most transactions were personal and direct, returning the correct, impeccably cleaned and folded items to their rightful owners was a crucial aspect of her professional integrity and reliability. She worked with quiet determination, ensuring that every single piece was accounted for, every bundle meticulously prepared, ready for the next stage of its journey. The sun dipped lower towards the western horizon, painting the sky with hues of orange and purple, casting longer, reddish shadows across the water and the land, signaling that her labor by the river was nearing its completion, and the clean laundry, utterly transformed from soiled to pristine, was almost ready for its triumphant return home, carrying with it the invisible mark of her dedication and unparalleled skill. The sun, which had been her diligent ally in the drying process throughout the long hours, now began its slow, inevitable descent towards the western desert, painting the horizon with hues of deep orange and soft purple. Its light, once bright and direct, softened into a mellow glow, casting long, stretching shadows across the broad expanse of the Nile and the vibrant, fertile fields that hugged its banks. The day's demanding work was undeniably nearing its close, but the most arduous and physically taxing part of her daily journey still lay ahead of her: the silent, heavy return trek to the village. With careful, almost ritualistic movements, honed by countless days of identical labor, she began to gather the now crisp, beautifully white, and sweet-smelling linen. Each individual piece, once a soiled and shapeless burden, was now transformed, a tangible testament to her unwavering diligence and the river's profound, purifying touch. She meticulously began to sort the neatly folded piles, assembling them with precision into distinct bundles, each destined for its respective owner. There were the fine, almost translucent sheets, woven with exquisite care, that belonged to the noble's grand estate. These were heavy and remarkably smooth beneath her work-roughened fingers, requiring an especially delicate handling. Then came the coarser yet robust tunics, sturdy wraps, and practical loincloths belonging to the numerous merchants, artisans, and farmers of the village, their utilitarian weaves feeling distinctly different, more textured, as she arranged them. Finally, she handled the simple, often well-worn garments of the common folk, perhaps a fisherman's patched tunic, a potter's clay-stained apron, or a laborer's humble kilt, each bearing the unique, subtle scent of their wearer and the faint, indelible traces of their daily toil. She bound these disparate bundles with strong, tightly woven ropes, securing them with practiced knots to prevent any accidental slippage or disarray during the long and often uneven walk. The bundles themselves were substantial, some reaching almost as tall as her torso, and their collective weight, once all assembled, was truly considerable, pressing down with a palpable force. This was the true physical cost of her indispensable labor, a burden she carried not just upon her strong shoulders, but felt deeply within the persistent familiar ache of her hard-working muscles. With a deep, steadying breath, she hoisted the largest and heaviest bundle onto her head, balancing it with an innate, almost instinctive sense of equilibrium, a skill honed and perfected over countless years of carrying similar, weighty loads. Smaller, more manageable bundles were then tucked securely under her arms or carefully slung across her back, creating a compact yet intensely heavy load that seemed to become a part of her very form. Despite the immense weight, her posture remained remarkably straight, her head held high, her gaze steady, a testament to her enduring physical strength and the quiet, unwavering dignity that defined her humble yet vital profession. The journey back from the open, sun-drenched riverbank to the cooler, more intimate embrace of the village evening was a profound transition, marked by subtle shifts in light, sound, and atmosphere. The air, which had shimmered with heat throughout the day, now held a gentle, refreshing coolness, carrying the first, almost imperceptible whispers of the approaching night. As she slowly departed from the river's immediate edge, the familiar, often bustling sounds of daytime activity began to softly fade, gradually replaced by the distinct, more tranquil symphony of dusk. The delicate, persistent chirping of crickets emerged from the dense papyrus thickets and the reeds along the water's edge, forming a steady, rhythmic hum that accompanied her deliberate steps. The distant braying of a donkey, perhaps returning to its stable, the lowing of cattle making their way back from pasture, and the occasional sharp bark of a village dog punctuated the growing, peaceful quiet. Her well-trodden route led her along narrow, winding paths that snaked between closely packed mud-brick homes, where the comforting scent of cooking fires was beginning to drift enticingly from open doorways and small unglazed windows. The subtle, inviting aroma of baking bread, warm and wonderfully comforting, mingled harmoniously with the savory scent of simmering lentils, fragrant stews, or the enticing smell of roasted fish, making her stomach rumble with a gentle yet insistent reminder of her own hunger after a day of strenuous activity. Children, now freed from the structured demands of their chores or the simple lessons taught by their elders, were playing energetically in the dusty lanes, their uninhibited laughter echoing clearly in the gathering twilight. They chased each other, their small figures darting like quick shadows, or played simple, timeless games with smooth stones and discarded sticks, their youthful energy a sharp contrast to her quiet weariness. Some, noticing her approach, would pause their boisterous play for a moment, their curious, innocent eyes following her steady progress, perhaps sensing the quiet dedication and deep fatigue in her measured, weary stride. She observed the village coming alive in a distinctly different way, shifting effortlessly from the industrious bustle and focused activity of daytime to the more relaxed, communal pace of evening. Men returned from the sun-baked fields, their bodies tired and their movements slow, but their faces often etched with the quiet satisfaction of a day's honest labor completed. Women gathered in small familiar groups outside their homes, their voices low and comforting as they shared stories, exchanged the day's news, or diligently continued their spinning of flax into fine thread. The small, flickering oil lamps, one by one, began to spring to life within the homes, casting warm, inviting glows that spilled softly onto the paths, creating intricate patterns of light and shadow, beckoning people indoors. The familiar, unchanging rhythm of village life, constant and profoundly reassuring, enveloped her in its embrace, a world she knew intimately. Each step she took was deliberate, a silent, enduring testament to her unwavering resolve. The substantial weight of the bundles pressed down upon her, a constant physical challenge, but she focused steadily on the familiar path ahead, her bare feet finding the well-known contours of the earth beneath them. She knew every uneven stone, every smooth patch of worn ground, every slight, almost imperceptible incline or decline. Her mind, though undoubtedly tired from the day's exertions, was far from empty. It was filled instead with the quiet, profound satisfaction of a day well spent, of tasks meticulously completed, and with the deep, reassuring knowledge that her consistent efforts contributed directly to the cleanliness, comfort, and overall well-being of her cherished community. Her work, though seemingly humble and often overlooked, was absolutely essential, ensuring the hygiene and comfort of many households, from the wealthiest to the poorest. As she drew steadily closer to the bustling center of the village, the sounds grew a little louder, the flickering lights a little brighter, indicating the heart of evening activity. She could clearly hear the low murmur of numerous conversations, the distant melodic notes of a lyre drifting from a wealthier home, or the rhythmic, pulsing beat of a drum from a distant celebration, perhaps a wedding or a festival. The energy of the evening was distinctly different from the quiet awakening of the morning. It was a winding down, a gathering, a shared moment of collective rest and communal connection before the deep, restorative slumber of the night. Finally, with a sense of quiet relief, she reached the homes of her various clients. One by one, she delivered the carefully sorted bundles, often exchanging a few polite, brief words with the household members who emerged to greet her. There were expressions of genuine gratitude, quiet nods of appreciation for the clean, fresh, and impeccably folded linens. The noble's respectful servant would offer a small gleaming coin, the merchant's kind wife a handful of sweet dried dates, the potter's humble family a warm, genuine smile and a shared moment of quiet understanding, acknowledging her vital role. With each successful delivery, her physical load perceptibly lightened, and a profound sense of physical release spread through her weary yet resilient limbs. The air around her felt freer, her steps a little lighter, as if a great weight had been lifted from her very being. By the time she had delivered the very last bundle, the sky above had transformed into a deep, inky blue, magnificently studded with the first brilliantly sparkling stars. The moon, now a slender ethereal crescent sliver, began its slow, graceful ascent, casting a pale, almost mystical light over the increasingly quiet, sleeping village. Her own home, a modest, familiar dwelling, was now within her sight. Its simple, comforting outline, dark and welcoming against the fading light, promised much-needed solace and deep, restorative rest. The journey had been long, the weight she carried substantial, but she had completed it as she did every single day without fail. Her return was not merely the end of another arduous workday, but a quiet, deeply personal ritual, a testament to her remarkable endurance and the cyclical, unchanging nature of life along the ancient Nile. She carried not only the clean linen, but the quiet, profound satisfaction of a duty consistently fulfilled, of a day lived with quiet purpose under the vast ancient Egyptian sky. The air grew cooler still, settling around her, and the lingering sounds of the village slowly, gradually faded into the profound, all-encompassing embrace of the night. The last bundle delivered, the final greetings exchanged, the washerwoman's worn sandals finally turned toward her own modest dwelling. The setting sun cast long, weary shadows across the narrow pathways of the village, painting the mud brick homes in hues of amber and deep orange. The air, still warm from the day's relentless heat, began to cool, bringing with it the familiar sense of cooking fires, dust, and the faint, lingering fragrance of the river. Her shoulders, long accustomed to the heavy loads, now felt the absence of the bundles, a different kind of fatigue settling deep into her bones. Each step, though purposeful, carried the weight of the day's immense labor. Upon reaching her home, a simple, functional space designed for practical living, she performed the ritual of evening cleansing. The dust of the day, the fine particles of sand and earth that clung to her skin and clothes, needed to be washed away. With a small bowl of water and a piece of natron, the natural salt that served as a cleanser, she meticulously washed her hands and face, removing the grime that accumulated from hours spent in and around the river. The cool water was a welcome solace, a brief moment of refreshment that soothed her tired muscles and cleared her mind. This was a private moment, a transition from the public sphere of labor to the quiet sanctity of her personal space. Dinner was a simple affair, often a meal prepared earlier in the day or a quick preparation of staples like bread, lentils, or vegetables, perhaps a little fish, if it had been available in the market. She ate slowly, savoring each bite, replenishing the energy reserves that had been so thoroughly depleted by her physical exertions. There was no rush, no pressing engagements, only the quiet rhythm of the evening. Perhaps a small oil lamp cast a soft glow illuminating the humble interior of her home, revealing the simple furnishings and the well-worn tools of her trade neatly stored away. This was a time for quiet reflection, for her mind to drift from the immediate tasks to the broader tapestry of her life. She might recall snippets of conversations from the village, the faces of her clients, or the gentle lapping of the Nile against her legs as she worked. As the last vestiges of twilight faded and the stars began to emerge in the vast, inky sky, her thoughts inevitably turned to tomorrow. For a washerwoman, the end of one day was merely the prelude to the next, a continuous cycle that defined her existence. She would inspect her tools, the wooden beating sticks, ensuring they were still sturdy and free of splinters, ready for another day of relentless pounding. She might check her supply of natron, the essential cleansing agent, making sure there was enough to last through the coming week. Any minor repairs to her carrying baskets or ropes would be addressed, ensuring they would not fail under the heavy loads of wet and dry linen. This meticulous preparation was not a chore, but a fundamental aspect of her professional pride and efficiency. It was a silent conversation with the future, a way of ensuring that she would be ready, come what may. She would gather the soiled garments that had accumulated throughout the day from her clients, carefully sorting them by type and color, separating the fine linen of the wealthy from the coarser fabrics of the common folk. This initial sorting, done in the quiet of her home, was crucial for optimizing her work process the following morning. Each pile represented a different washing technique, a different level of care required. The thought of the morning's chill, the cool embrace of the Nile, and the familiar ache in her muscles would cross her mind, Yet there was no hesitation, no dread. It was simply the way of things, the unyielding rhythm of her life. Before finally laying down to rest, she would make sure her sleeping mat was comfortable, perhaps adjusting a worn blanket. Sleep would come easily, a deep, restorative slumber earned through honest, tireless labor. The sounds of the village would slowly fade, replaced by the gentle chirping of crickets and the distant murmur of the Nile. Even in her sleep, her body, attuned to the demands of her profession, would be preparing for the dawn. Her hands, calloused and strong, would instinctively relax, ready to grip the beating stick once more. Her legs, accustomed to standing in the river for hours, would stretch and recover. The promise of tomorrow was not one of novelty or adventure, but of continuity and purpose. It was the quiet assurance that the sun would rise again, the Nile would continue to flow, and the need for clean linen would persist. Her life was a testament to the enduring human capacity for diligent, repetitive work, a quiet dedication to a task that, while seemingly mundane, was utterly indispensable. She was a silent guardian of cleanliness, a vital cog in the machinery of daily life in ancient Egypt. As she drifted into sleep, the weight of her responsibilities lifted momentarily, only to be gently replaced by the faint, comforting whisper of the river, river, calling her back to its banks with the first light of dawn. The cycle would begin anew, the ancient rhythm of labor and life as unchanging and reliable as the rising sun itself. Her day ended as it had begun, with an anticipation of the dawn and the familiar rhythm of labor. You might consider her life simple, perhaps even monotonous, given the ceaseless repetition of her tasks. Yet in the quiet dedication of this Egyptian washerwoman, and indeed of all those who shared her calling, lay a profound and enduring significance for the very fabric of ancient society. Her work was not merely about cleaning soiled linen. It was a cornerstone of health, hygiene, and even the spiritual well-being of a civilization that valued purity in every aspect of its existence. This dedication, often unseen and unacknowledged in the grand narratives of pharaohs and gods, was nonetheless as fundamental to the functioning of their world as the annual inundation of the Nile. In a world before modern medicine understood the microscopic threats that lurked in everyday grime, cleanliness was an intuitive and vital shield against illness. The meticulous, relentless beating and rinsing of fabrics, the careful application of natural cleansers like natron, a mineral salt found in desert deposits, and various plant ashes rich in alkaline properties. These processes, though physically strenuous and primitive by today's advanced scientific standards, were remarkably effective at removing dirt, grease, and the unseen agents of disease. Every garment she returned, fresh, sun-dried, and often imbued with the subtle scent of the river and sun, contributed directly to the health of the household it served. From the coarse, durable tunics of laborers to the meticulously woven sheer linen robes of scribes, priests, and the nobility, each piece represented a crucial barrier against skin irritations, festering infections from minor cuts or abrasions, and the ever-present threat of insect infestations that thrived in unhygienic conditions. Her tireless work mitigated these daily struggles, allowing people to live with a greater degree of comfort, dignity, and vitality, reducing the burden of preventable ailments that could otherwise debilitate entire families. Beyond physical health, cleanliness held deep religious and profound social importance in ancient Egypt. Purity was not merely a preference, it was a strict requirement for approaching the gods, for participating in sacred rituals, and for maintaining one's status within the intricate social hierarchy. Priests, for instance, underwent rigorous purification rites and were mandated to wear garments of unblemished white linen before entering the hallowed spaces of temples. The washerwoman's skilled hands, though rough with the constant immersion in water and the friction of the cloth, ensured that these vital spiritual and ceremonial requirements were met with unwavering precision. She enabled the devout to perform their sacred duties without spiritual blemish, and the elite to present themselves in a manner befitting their elevated station, reflecting order and prosperity. Her labor, therefore, subtly yet powerfully supported the complex religious practices and the structured social order that bound the society together, giving it cohesion and meaning. Her role was quiet, often unnoticed, and certainly uncelebrated in the same breath as the architects of pyramids or the victorious generals. She did not build grand temples or carve monumental statues that would stand for millennia. Her legacy was not etched in enduring stone, but rather woven invisibly into the very fibers of daily life, into the freshness of clothes, the purity of rituals, and the general well-being of the populace. Yet without her tireless, repetitive efforts, the flow of daily existence would have become sluggish, burdened by widespread discomfort, disease, and a pervasive sense of disorder. She was a silent guardian of community health and spiritual integrity, a foundational pillar upon which the routine, the order, and the very civility of the community rested. Her days were a continuous, demanding cycle of effort, dictated by the relentless passage of the sun across the sky and the immutable flow of the Nile, a testament to the enduring human capacity for diligence, resilience, and quiet dedication in the face of physically demanding, often thankless, labor. The rhythmic thud of her wooden beating club against the wet fabric, the steady splash of water as she meticulously rinsed away the last vestiges of dirt, the gentle rustle of crisp linen drying in the warm, dry breeze along the riverbanks, these were the subtle, unseen sounds of a healthy, functioning, and devout society. Her work was a continuous, indispensable act of renewal, a daily transformation of the soiled into the pure, the worn into the fresh. It was a humble yet absolutely essential contribution to the collective well-being of an entire civilization, freeing others to pursue their own crafts, to worship their gods without impediment, and to simply live their lives with a greater sense of ease, comfort, and cleanliness. Even as centuries turned into millennia and the grand monuments of Egypt crumbled into sand, the fundamental human need for cleanliness, comfort, and purity endured. A constant thread through the tapestry of time, the washerwoman of ancient Egypt, in her seemingly mundane yet so profoundly vital daily routine, embodied a timeless human endeavor, the quiet, persistent struggle against decay and disorder, the constant, unwavering effort to bring freshness, order, and purity into the world. Her story, though seemingly simple and devoid of dramatic battles or royal intrigue, is a powerful reminder that the most vital contributions to society are often those performed without fanfare, those that simply keep the essential gears of life turning day after quiet day, ensuring the health and smooth functioning of a civilization. Her legacy is not found in a name remembered by history, but in the unseen comfort, the reduced suffering, and the pervasive health she helped provide. A steady, indispensable force flowing through the very heart of a civilization, much like the timeless, life-giving Nile itself. It is a testament to the quiet strength and unwavering dedication found in the most ordinary of lives, a constant echo across the ages.